Before we dive in, if you love epic tales of war, strategy, hit that subscribe and like button, turn on notifications, and join our growing legion of warriors. Now, let's begin. Imagine this. A distant part of the universe, untouched by human hands, where the oldest civilizations have ruled for millennia. In this vast expanse, there exists a galactic order, a ruthless hierarchy of empires, each more powerful than the last. They watch the cosmos with a silent arrogance, believing themselves to be the ultimate force in existence. And then, they noticed Earth, a backwater planet with no known interstellar presence, seemingly primitive, insignificant, a world so small and fragile that it wasn't even worthy of conquest. It was a curiosity, nothing more. But curiosity soon turned to contempt. Earth, with its unpredictable bursts of technology and relentless conflicts, began sending signals into the void. Probes, radio waves, digital messages. Humanity was shouting into the dark, unaware of what listened. And something did listen. The Valtrax Dominion, an empire that had subjugated dozens of worlds, enslaving entire species, harvesting planets for resources without a second thought. To them, Earth was an anomaly, an insult to their supremacy. When they realized that humans were growing, expanding, learning faster than they should have, they made a decision. Earth had to be crushed. Not just as an example, but as a warning. No species should be allowed to rise without their approval. The invasion was swift. Colossal warships, each the size of a city, emerged from hyperspace, casting shadows over the continents below. Their arrival was not subtle. Massive energy. Readings set off every alarm system on Earth. At first, there was disbelief, then panic. Governments scrambled, militaries mobilized, but against what? These invaders weren't from another nation, another rival superpower. This was something beyond comprehension. And when the first shots were fired, Earth learned the truth. The Valtrax wielded weapons beyond human imagination. Energy lances that melted steel like butter. Gravitational pulses that shattered defenses before they could even react. Cities fell in minutes. Communications were jammed. Satellites were obliterated. Humanity's proudest technological achievements, its missiles, jets, and warships, were little more than toys against a force that had conquered the stars for centuries. The invaders laughed. This wasn't war. It was extermination. But they made a mistake so grave that it would haunt them forever. They underestimated humanity. They had assumed Earth was weak because it lacked interstellar power. They assumed that because humans were divided, they would crumble. They had no idea what they were truly facing, because humans had something no other species in the galaxy possessed. Something terrifying. Something unstoppable. The will to win at any cost. The Valtrax Dominion had waged countless wars before. They had conquered planets teeming with life, annihilated civilizations that dared to resist, and crushed rebellions with ruthless precision. To them, warfare was mathematical, predictable. A species could only fight as long as their technology allowed it, and once that technology was outmatched, they fell like dominoes. It had always been that way. Until Earth. At first, it seemed like humanity would crumble just as the Valtrax had expected. Entire cities were turned to molten craters. Military bases were wiped off the map before they could even launch a counter-offensive, and the global economy collapsed within hours. The skies burned, and the world watched in horror as enemy warships hovered like gods of destruction, unchallenged. But then, something happened that the invaders had not anticipated. Humanity did not surrender. If anything, Earth fought back with an intensity the Valtrax had never encountered before. Even as governments fell, scattered militaries banded together, operating in the shadows. The invaders expected immediate capitulation, yet instead, they faced an enemy that refused to die. The first sign of this defiance came when an orbital dreadnought, believed to be untouchable, was obliterated by a single missile. A missile that should never have even reached it. The Valtrax had assumed human weapons were useless against their advanced shielding. But they had underestimated human ingenuity. Earth's surviving scientists had quickly realized a terrifying flaw in the invaders' defenses. Their shields, designed to withstand energy-based weaponry, were nearly impervious to plasma or particle cannons. but they had never been tested against crude, kinetic-based projectiles traveling at hypersonic speeds. The Dominion had evolved, past the need for primitive ballistics, relying on energy warfare for centuries. And yet, humanity's outdated technology, railguns, depleted uranium shells, and tungsten rods fired from orbital platforms, suddenly became the most lethal force in the war. The first orbital kill was just the beginning. Within days, humanity's counteroffensive began in earnest. Subterranean bunkers transformed into war rooms, as surviving leaders coordinated strikes through encrypted networks. Military engineers repurposed every resource they had. Old nuclear silos became launch sites for improvised space weapons. Civilian factories were converted into war machine assembly lines, and programmers hijacked alien systems, using AI to turn the enemy's own technology against them. And then there were the soldiers. The Valtrax had made another fatal mistake, assuming humans would break in the face of superior firepower. But Earth's history had been written in blood, forged through endless conflict. No other species in the galaxy had waged war on itself for as long as humanity had. While the Dominion fought with discipline and strategy, humans fought like cornered beasts, ruthless, unpredictable, and unrelenting. When the first alien patrols landed to secure Earth's ruined cities, they were met not with surrender, but with ambushes. Guerrilla warfare erupted worldwide. Civilians who had never fired a weapon before took up arms. Engineers rigged skyscrapers with explosives, collapsing entire structures on top of advancing forces. Hackers infiltrated enemy targeting systems, blinding their war machines before infantry units stormed them with makeshift EMPs. The Valtrax had assumed Earth was theirs within days, but now they faced an enemy that refused to play by the rules. They had never fought a species that viewed war as a total commitment, a fight that would only end when one side no longer existed. And for the first time in their history, they felt something alien to them. Fear. Fear. The Valtrax had never felt it before. It was an unfamiliar sensation for a race that had spent millennia as the galaxy's apex predators. But now, on a world they had deemed primitive, their forces were crumbling. It wasn't because they lacked firepower or numbers. It wasn't because humanity had superior technology. No. It was because of something far more terrifying. The humans refused to fight like any species before them. The Valtrax waged war, with calculated efficiency, overwhelming power, swift annihilation, precise occupation. Every invasion before this had followed the same pattern: establish orbital dominance, cripple planetary infrastructure, eliminate organized resistance, and absorb the remnants. There was no room for prolonged conflict. But now, they were trapped in an unfamiliar nightmare. Humanity did not surrender. Humanity did not beg for mercy. Humanity adapted. The war transformed into something the Dominion had never encountered: an unrelenting, asymmetrical slaughter. Their massive warships, designed for planetary bombardments, were ill-equipped to deal with hit-and-run attacks. Their heavily armored soldiers, trained for direct confrontations, were being lured into urban death traps where every building, every sewer, every ruined highway became a battlefield. They tried to flush out resistance with overwhelming firepower, reducing entire cities to rubble. But humans did not fight for territory. They fought for survival. With every street lost, they retreated, regrouped, and struck from the shadows. And then came the real horror. The Valtrax had underestimated Earth's scientific minds. Humanity's greatest strength was not just its resilience, but its ability to innovate under pressure. The moment the first alien dreadnought was destroyed by kinetic weaponry, Earth scientists began working in overdrive. They reverse-engineered alien technology at an unprecedented rate, unlocking secrets that should have taken centuries to decipher. Within weeks, human engineers had developed weapons that tore through Valtrax armor like paper. Soldiers went from using scavenged alien rifles to wielding modified plasma cannons. Tanks were refitted with energy shielding. Fighters that once struggled to breach the enemy's defenses now carried experimental warheads capable of disrupting Valtrax ship systems. The tide was turning, and the Dominion knew it. Desperate, the Valtrax High Command made a decision they had never resorted to before: total planetary sterilization. If Earth could not be conquered, it would be erased. They began mobilizing their doomsday weapons, planet crackers, devices capable of tearing the very crust of a world apart. The order was given. The countdown began. But just as the Valtrax prepared to unleash annihilation upon Earth, something impossible happened. Their fleet lost contact, not with Earth, but with their own homeworld. Confusion spread through their ranks. High Command sent transmission after transmission, demanding an explanation. There was no response. And then, the horror set in. Humanity had done the unthinkable. Somehow, impossibly, Earth had taken the fight beyond its own atmosphere. Somewhere in the shadows of war, while the Valtrax focused on planetary destruction, humanity's greatest minds had devised a plan so audacious, so reckless, that no other species would have dared attempt it. Using hijacked alien ships, stealth systems, and experimental FTL drives, a covert strike force had done what the Dominion believed was impossible. They had taken the war to the enemy's doorstep, and now, for the first time in Valtrax history, the invaders were the ones being invaded. The Valtrax homeworld, Valoris Prime, had stood as the jewel of their empire for millennia. A planet of towering citadels, endless industrial spires, and vast orbital shipyards. It was the heart of their dominion, the nerve center of a civilization that had never known fear. Its defenses were impenetrable, its fleets unmatched, or so they believed. But as the skies above their capital darkened with unfamiliar warships and alarms blared across the surface, a terrifying realization set in. Humanity was here. The Dominion's arrogance had been its downfall. In all their conquests, they had never faced an enemy capable of striking back. Their fleets were always outward-facing, designed for invasion, not defense. They had never considered the possibility of an attack on their own soil. The very idea had been laughable. Until now. The human strike force had executed the impossible. Using captured Valtrax ships, they had infiltrated Dominion territory undetected, slipping past security checkpoints disguised as returning war vessels. But they hadn't come for diplomacy. They hadn't come for negotiations. They had come to end the war. The first attack was swift. The orbital defense grid, the pride of the Dominion, was disabled in seconds, not with brute force, but with precision hacking. Human cyber warfare specialists, having studied alien systems for weeks, had infiltrated the Valtrax networks, seizing control of entire battle platforms. What followed was chaos. The Dominion's own stations turned on them, targeting friendly vessels, firing upon their own planetary defenses. And then, the real assault began. A fleet of repurposed alien warships, now under human command, descended upon Valoris Prime like an avenging storm. Modified plasma cannons unleashed devastation upon the Valtrax capital. Orbital bombardments rained fire upon the very empire that had once sought to exterminate Earth. Entire sectors of the planet went dark as power grids were overwhelmed by EMP strikes. But humanity hadn't come to destroy indiscriminately. They had one target above all else. The Valtrax High Command. They were here for vengeance. On the surface, the Dominion's elites scrambled to react. The Supreme War Council, once so confident in their absolute rule, was now trapped in their own fortress, their defenses crumbling around them. The few remaining military units attempted to fight back, but they were no longer facing a primitive species. The humans had learned. They moved with terrifying precision, using the very tactics that had been used against them. Stealth teams infiltrated enemy compounds, cutting off command chains before resistance could even begin. Urban warfare units stormed the Valtrax capital, engaging in brutal close-quarters combat. Modified weapons, enhanced with alien technology, tore through once impervious armor. And then came the moment that shook the galaxy. A single message was broadcast across every Dominion channel, hijacking every screen, every communication line, every public feed. It was a human voice, calm, but filled with the weight of a species pushed to the brink. You came to our world with fire and death. You sought to exterminate us like we were nothing. But you made a mistake. You should have finished the job, because now we are here. And we do not forget. We do not forgive. This war ends today. It was not a warning. It was a sentence. And as the final human strike teams breached the inner sanctum of the Supreme War Council, the fate of the Valtrax Dominion was sealed. For the first time in history, an empire that had never known defeat was falling, and Earth had become something far more terrifying than the Dominion had ever imagined. It had become the Predator. The Supreme War Council of the Valtrax Dominion had ruled for over 10,000 years. Across countless star systems, their word had been law, their power absolute. They had reduced entire civilizations to dust, erased species from existence, and expanded their dominion without question. No one had ever dared to challenge them, until now. The grand fortress of the War Council, once the most secure structure in the galaxy, had become a tomb. Smoke and fire filled its once pristine halls. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and the acrid bite of plasma discharge. Elite Valtrax guards, trained from birth to be the ultimate warriors, lay motionless in the corridors, their bodies broken by an enemy they had once considered insignificant. And then, from the darkness, they came. A small team of human operatives, clad in experimental battle armor, forged from reverse-engineered Valtrax technology, breached the council chamber. The doors, once thought unbreakable, had been torn apart with a controlled detonation, revealing the trembling figures of the Supreme War Council inside. The most powerful beings in the Dominion were now cornered like prey. One of them, an elder Valtrax general with war medallions covering his chest, stepped forward, trying to reclaim his species' shattered dignity. His voice was deep, commanding, desperate. You cannot do this. We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. You are nothing but... A single gunshot silenced him forever. The lead human operative lowered his weapon, his visor reflecting the flickering fires around them. There was no hesitation, no gloating, no negotiation. This was justice. The other council members recoiled in horror. They had expected arrogance, perhaps even a speech, some display of self-righteous victory. But these humans, they were different. They did not seek to conquer. They sought to end this, swiftly and decisively. The remaining Valtrax barely had time to react before the room was flooded with gunfire. The massacre was over in seconds. The Supreme War Council, rulers of the Dominion for 10 millennia, ceased to exist. But humanity's mission was not yet complete. From orbit, a final transmission was sent across the Valtrax-controlled worlds. A simple, undeniable message, spoken in a dozen alien tongues so that no one could misunderstand. Your masters are dead. The Dominion has fallen. Surrender, or be erased. The galaxy held its breath. Across the Dominion's vast empire, panic spread like wildfire. Governors, fleet admirals, planetary warlords, each of them suddenly found themselves leaderless, facing an enemy that had just accomplished the unthinkable. Entire sectors fell into disarray as Valtrax forces, for the first time in their history, laid down their arms. Some tried to resist, clinging to the shattered remnants of their power. But their fleets were in chaos, their soldiers demoralized, their war machines now useless against an enemy that had outmaneuvered them at every turn. And so, the unthinkable happened. One by one, the Dominion's worlds surrendered. Valtrax. Banners were torn down, replaced by the insignia of the United Earth Federation. The once feared dominators of the galaxy now found themselves under occupation by the very species they had sought to annihilate. The war was over, but the story of humanity was only just beginning, because now, the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was not prey. They were not weak. They were not afraid. They were the storm that would reshape the stars. The echoes of war still reverberated across the galaxy. The Valtrax Dominion, once the undisputed overlords of hundreds of worlds, had collapsed in a matter of weeks. Their fleets were shattered, their leadership exterminated, their vast territories now in disarray. But what followed was not peace. It was something far more terrifying. With the Dominion gone, a power vacuum consumed the stars. Former vassal races, once enslaved under the Valtrax banner, began to rise. Some seeking freedom, others seeking vengeance. Rival factions emerged from the ruins, each claiming legitimacy, each declaring themselves the rightful successors of the fallen empire. Chaos erupted. Civil wars spread like wildfire. Entire star systems became battlegrounds, torn between those who sought to rebuild and those who sought only destruction. And at the heart of it all stood humanity. No longer confined to their small corner of the cosmos, the United Earth Federation found itself in an unexpected position, not as conquerors, but as the arbiters of a shattered galaxy. They had not planned for this. The war had been about survival, about ensuring Earth would never again be threatened by an alien force. But in their victory, they had changed the balance of power forever. Now the galaxy looked to them with equal parts fear and awe. The conquered dominion. Worlds, uncertain of their fate, sent desperate envoys to negotiate their survival. Former enemies, once loyal to the Valtrax, now begged for amnesty, pledging allegiance to Earth's new order. And among the liberated races, those who had suffered under the Dominion's rule, there was hope. Hope that humanity would be different. But was that hope misplaced? Because something had changed within humanity itself. The war had forged them into something new, something colder, more calculating. No longer the underdogs, they were now the dominant force in the galaxy. Their fleets, reverse-engineered from the Dominion's own warships, were now the most advanced in existence. Their soldiers, hardened by the fires of interstellar war, had become legends, and their leaders. They understood something no other species had grasped. Power was not given, it was taken. And once taken, it could never be relinquished. Humanity did not dismantle the Dominion's war machine. They repurposed it. They took control of the shipyards, the planetary defense grids, the vast industrial complexes that had once fueled an empire of conquest. The same weapons that had once threatened Earth now stood under human command. The message was clear. Earth had not just survived, it had ascended. But what would they do with this power? Would they bring order to the chaos, forging a new galactic civilization under their rule? Would they become the very thing they had fought against, a force of absolute domination? Or would they disappear into the shadows, watching, waiting, ensuring no other empire would ever rise to challenge them again? The galaxy held its breath, waiting for an answer. And in the darkness, the leaders of the United Earth Federation gathered, standing before the greatest decision in human history. Would they be saviors, or would they become something else entirely? Something far more terrifying. The weight of the galaxy now rested on humanity's shoulders. With the Valtrax Dominion reduced to ashes, the United Earth Federation stood at a crossroads. Would they take the mantle of rulers, or would they let the galaxy descend into chaos? Across the stars, the whispers of fear and admiration spread. Some saw humanity as liberators, a force that had shattered the greatest tyrants in history. Others saw them as conquerors, silent, calculating, and patient. The Dominion had fallen fast, but the true test had only just begun. Earth's leaders debated their next move in secret. The High Command was divided. Some argued for complete withdrawal. Let the aliens fight among themselves. Earth had achieved its goal: survival. Why risk becoming entangled in a galaxy that had always sought their destruction? But others, the war-hardened strategists who had led humanity to victory, saw things differently. If we leave now, someone else will rise. Another empire, another threat. We struck first this time. But what about next time? They had learned a brutal lesson. Peace was an illusion. The galaxy was not a place of diplomacy or coexistence. It was a battlefield, and there was only one way to ensure humanity would never be threatened again: total control. The United Earth Federation initiated Operation Dominion's Shadow. It was not an invasion. It was something far more insidious. Rather than conquer with brute force, humanity worked in the shadows. Fleet movements were strategic, subtle. Intelligence networks infiltrated former Valtrax worlds, placing key political figures under Earth's control. Advanced AI algorithms, built from the shattered databases of the Dominion, began manipulating economies, collapsing rebel factions from within, ensuring that no other species could rise to challenge Earth's supremacy. Within months, human advisors stood in the halls of power across the former Dominion. Puppet governments were installed. Loyalist factions were armed and supplied, while potential threats were eliminated before they could ever gain momentum. Entire species found themselves unknowingly bending to Earth's will. Not through war, but through careful, silent control. And then, the final step. The United Earth Federation unveiled its newest fleet. Not the salvaged relics of the Valtrax. Not the war-worn cruisers that had once defended Earth. No. This was something else entirely. The Black Armada. A fleet built from the ruins of war, incorporating the most advanced technologies ever discovered. Stealth-capable warships able to strike without warning. Planetary suppression weapons that could silence an entire world with a single command. AI-controlled dreadnoughts, faster, deadlier, and completely untethered from human limitations. It was not a fleet meant for open war, it was a reminder, a warning to the galaxy. There will be no second Valtrax Dominion. No empire will rise again. No species will ever threaten Earth. The message was delivered with terrifying precision. One world, Carven 5, home to the last remnants of the Valtrax resistance, vanished overnight. No invasion, no battle, no survivors. One moment it was there, and the next, it was gone. The galaxy understood. Earth was not just another player in the cosmic game. They had become something else entirely. A force unseen, unpredictable, unstoppable. For the first time in history, the stars had a new ruler, but they did not wear a crown. They did not march armies through conquered worlds. They ruled from the shadows. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had changed. It had not been conquered in the traditional sense. There were no banners raised, no grand declarations of victory. And yet, in every corner of the cosmos, from the ruins of the Valtrax Dominion to the farthest neutral worlds, one undeniable truth had settled into the minds of every species. Humanity was in control. It was not spoken aloud. There were no parades, no celebrations. But the stars themselves seemed to whisper it, the way the once mighty factions hesitated before making a move. How galactic trade subtly adjusted itself to favor Earth. How entire civilizations began modeling their military structures after human tactics. The influence was there. Silent, absolute, but not everyone bowed willingly. Across the galactic frontier, the last remnants of the old world gathered in secret, small factions, exiled leaders, broken warlords, all seeking to defy the unseen hand guiding their fates. In the void beyond mapped space, whispers of an anti-human coalition began to spread. They called themselves the Eclipse, a shadow movement, built on fear. They had seen what Earth had done, how they had turned the galaxy into a silent empire, and they feared what would come next. Would humanity stop at control, or would they take the next step? Would they become exterminators? The leaders of the Eclipse knew that open war was impossible. Earth's fleets were too powerful, their reach too vast. But they had one thing left: desperation. They sent a message, broadcast on every available frequency. To the beings of the galaxy: do not mistake humanity's silence for mercy. Do not believe their lies of balance and peace. They do not rule through kindness. They rule through fear, and fear is a chain that must be broken. We are Eclipse. We will not kneel. We will not vanish in the dark. We will fight, no matter the cost. The words echoed across the cosmos. A final act of defiance. Humanity watched, listened, considered. But there was no response. No fleet mobilization. No sudden counterattack. Just silence. And that silence was far more terrifying than war. Days passed, then weeks. The Eclipse waited for retaliation. But it never came. And then, one by one, their leaders began to disappear. No battles, no assassinations, no evidence, just gone. Entire hideouts were abandoned overnight, as if their occupants had simply ceased to exist. Weapons caches were left untouched, their owners missing. Safe houses remained undisturbed, except for a single symbol burned into the walls, a simple, unmistakable mark, a black circle. The Eclipse understood. Earth had spoken, not with fleets, not with war, but with something far worse. A quiet, methodical erasure. The last rebel transmission was brief. A desperate, frantic voice, barely a whisper. They're not an empire, not conquerors, not rulers. They are something else, something beyond understanding. You cannot fight them. You cannot reason with them. You cannot even see them coming. And then, silence. The eclipse was no more. The galaxy moved on. New alliances formed. Trade flourished. Wars between lesser factions continued. But none ever grew powerful enough to challenge the new order. Because in the darkness, Earth watched, and the message was clear. There would be no war. There would be no empires. Because humanity had already won. Before the galaxy had even realized the game had begun, and no one would ever challenge them again. Final thought. Imagine living in a galaxy where the most dangerous force doesn't announce its presence. Where power isn't measured by fleets or weapons, but by the absolute certainty that resistance is futile. Would you fight against the unseen hand? Or would you accept the silent rule of the new masters of the cosmos? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey into the depths of HFY Chronicles-849 and intergalactic dominance, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Xeno Chronicles for more thrilling stories of humanity's rise among the stars. The universe is vast, but in the end, it belongs to us.